change between the two companies. My favorite writer, Douglas Copeland, is using Lego on all his covers. But sadly, because Lego, we won the competition in 2007 for the towers, and in 2008 September, when everything sort of collapsed, the project died, and it seemed like everything had been for nothing. But then we got contacted by the Rockefeller family, and we were asked to do a big financial center in Tianjin, the port city of Beijing, and we really wanted to do something. It had to be something that somehow re-invoked the spirit of the Rockefeller Center in New York. Currently, we have 30 people in our Copenhagen office working around the clock on this project. It's by far the single greatest enterprise. These are actually all the floor plans. It's a 20-meter long drawing. And the idea was to sort of create a relationship with the historical Rockefeller Center, but in a new sort of language. And somehow the language of the sort of modular 4.5 by 4 meter pixelated stalagmite suddenly became an interesting approach. So in a way we sort of we resurrected the ideas behind the Lego towers, and now they've become this like by far the tallest structure we've ever done. We broke ground recently in Tianjin. It's this like very massive and sort of a very like theatrical exercise. And actually, 2 months ago, we got invited by Lego to do a competition for a Lego museum, which is definitely my childhood dream. Also, the good thing about doing a Lego museum, it becomes very easy to explain your nephews what it is you're doing. I never earned so much respect since we started working on this. And actually, Brian was the project leader for the project, and we just got the news a week ago that we won it. I can't show it yet, but I can promise that there will be a Lego architecture product available where you can try to sort of explore it with your own Lego building skills. So essentially, like I would like to sort of try to trace a series of these ways that ideas flow through an office, like the Lego towers. Like everything you do is somehow part of taking the next step. And even though the Lego towers failed, they somehow came back both as the idea and also as Lego. One of the things that has sort of dawned on us as an office is this sort of notion that architecture is not just the design of beautiful facades or exciting sculptures. It's really the design of ecosystems where we channel not only the flow of people but also the flow of resources through our designs. And one of the reasons for this sort of expanded role of architecture is quite evident in this photo that was taken at the United Nations Conference on Climate Change in Copenhagen 3 years ago. And I think in general you can see that there's a pretty weird mood, especially Sarkozy reveals that this is not a party. It's a complete fiasco. None of the goals that were established for the summit were met. And the general idea about sustainability was drowning in the misconception that sustainability is a question of how much of our current quality of life are we willing to sacrifice in order to afford being sustainable. So when we got invited to do the Danish Pavilion in Shanghai at the World Expo, where the subject was sustainable cities, we thought, what if sustainable cities could actually increase the quality of life and human enjoyment? So we designed the pavilion as a Danish streetscape, complete with the blue bicycle lanes of Copenhagen and the Danish city bikes. You could actually sort of bicycle through the exhibition, also making it the ideal museum for impatient people, because you can do the whole thing in 2 minutes without missing a single exhibit. And also, at the heart of the pavilion, because Copenhagen is so clean environmentally, you can actually swim in the port in the middle of the city. So we recreated the harbor bath, where people can experience how clean, if not how cold, Danish harbor water is. And finally we thought, how are we going to get the Chinese to come to the Danish pavilion and experience this idea of human enjoyment and sustainability going hand in hand? And we discovered that in the Chinese public school curriculum, they have 3 fairy tales by Hans Christian Andersen, one of them being the story of the Little Mermaid. So we proposed to move the mermaid to China for 6 months. It's the national symbol of Denmark. When the Danish Nationalist Party heard about this, they freaked out and tried to pass a law against moving the mermaid. So I had to go to Parliament and argue her case. And as you can see, we got her. Then we had to get her through Chinese customs and into the pavilion. In her absence, we invited the Chinese artist Ai Weiwei to do an installation, and he proposed to install a Chinese surveillance camera in the pavilion. It's the same camera that the Chinese state has installed in front of his studio. But this one is part of an installation he did that's called the Mermaid Exchange, and it transmits a live image to a giant flat screen where the mermaid normally sits. So when the tourists go in vain, they'll see that she's okay. But also, and maybe more importantly, politically, it became a loophole in the Great Firewall of China, because for 6 months it was the only live, uncensored TV feed from China to the rest of the world. So essentially this became the first time we sort of coined the phrase hedonistic sustainability, or trying to look at how can sustainable cities actually increase the quality of life. Basically, as I mentioned, we started in Copenhagen 12 years ago. These are some of the photos from our office in Copenhagen. And one of the most recent events is that we moved this October into a new office. We tried to find a place in Denmark that looks like New York. So this is actually 14-meter ceilings. And also we moved to New York 2 years ago. This is the mandatory haircut in the New York office. Actually, this is the winner of the summer party dress code this summer in New York. We opened our office in America, and as a result, we started trying to see how do the things that we've developed in Denmark, how do they translate when you move to a completely different culture and a completely different context. So some of the work that we've done in Denmark that you might know, we did the mountain that is essentially turning a man-made mountain out of an apartment building, making it this sort of landscape of houses with gardens, where you have the lifestyle of suburban home, a house with a garden, but also with a penthouse view. And this is made possible by putting it on top of a parking structure. The facade is made with perforated plates, so it breathes and passes daylight and air, but also from a distance it becomes like a giant man-made artwork. And this sort of idea that we call architectural alchemy, that explores synergy between the different programs, we took one step further for the 8 House at the city limits of Copenhagen. It's really where the city stops and another life form takes over. And what we try to do is that essentially shops and offices, they like to be close to the customers on the ground. Apartments like to go on top. Apartments like sunlight and views. Offices like the shade of the north. So by sort of optimizing